Hello, today we're going to be showing you how to do a complete power steering refresh on your BMW E39 540i or E39 M5. A lot of videos I've seen online, I try to get some insight on how to get everything replaced, but unfortunately they don't show you how to replace the pressure hose on these vehicles. So I will be replacing that on mine. It's pretty important to replace as like preventative maintenance, because once those do explode, they don't really allow you to drive the car very much, because obviously it's a pressure hose, so it leaks out very, very quickly. So we're going to do a little bit of preventative maintenance on this vehicle, as well as some much needed maintenance. As you can see in my power steering reservoir, it's starting to overflow and kind of let all that crap out. So we're going to take care of all that today. I'm going to try and be as detailed as possible so you guys can follow along. The first thing I did here, as you can see, is I have my vehicle on ramps, and I also have the back wheels chocked back there, as you can see. We're going to try and do this as safe as possible and as efficiently as possible. And I'm going to show you guys how I do all that. So stay tuned. First things first, I am going to recommend that you print out this diagram. If you go on realoem.com, you can type in the last 7 of your VIN number on your vehicle. You'll find that right under the windshield. There's a little cutout right there. It'll show your VIN. If you type the last 7 of your VIN onto this website, you go to steering and you can find this diagram right here. I'll even zoom in on it for you guys. That right there is going to give you a good idea on how everything is routed and all the parts you need, all the washers you need, everything like that. So first things first, I'm going to recommend that you get all of your hoses, and the ones that require the washers right here, I am going to recommend you get some super glue, and you go ahead and super glue the washers to the actual hose, because everything's going to be pretty tight up in there. It's going to save you a bit of a headache. So that's the first tip I have for you. I'm going to do that right now. Washers number 4, part number that end in 598. These two right here. There's a part number for that. So this part number 598 goes on hose number 1. Hose number 1 ends in 514. 514, 514. Bam, here we go. This is a Euro part. As you can see, part number for this one as well. I don't know, I've never actually installed Euro parts on my vehicle before, but hopefully it's pretty good. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna install some super glue or Gorilla Glue on the washers that go around the hole here for the banjo bolt, as you can see. I'm gonna install some super glue, just dab it on there, nothing crazy. I'm gonna dab it on there, on the washers, stick it on here, and then let that dry, because I know it's gonna be kind of a pain. It's gonna be a bit of a pain to do that under the car when everything's, not glued together. So I'm gonna try and take care of that first. Just a couple dabs, nothing crazy. So I pretty much have been squeezing that bottle for the past 5 minutes and I can't get anything to come out. So I ended up getting my just little pick and sticking it in that bottle. And I'm gonna coat like just a little bit of super glue on the edges of this thing. Just enough that it sticks on the hose like I mentioned earlier. So I set that one aside. Now next one we're gonna do, the IC, is hose number 5, 4, number 7 washers, as you can see. Number 7 is gonna be ending in part number 596. Here's the entire part number for you. And then that's gonna be hose number 926. This one also is from Euro Tuning. Here's the part number for that. So all 4 are on there. Now I'm gonna set it aside again and on to the next one. Next up, let's see. I think the other 2 hoses don't have washers. Instead, they're gonna have these O-rings that go to those are all the washers we're gonna have. So next up, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna drain the power steering fluid off of the reservoir, and I'm gonna show you how I do that. Give me 1 second. So I'm going underneath the vehicle. I have a drain bucket already. Make sure it's empty. If you look here, this is your power steering pump underneath the vehicle. This bolt back here is going to have a 24 millimeter banjo bolt. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch ratchet with my 24 millimeter and take this banjo bolt loose. And that's going to allow me to drain the fluid out of it from here. Finally cracked it loose. I had to go overhand. You can see it's already starting to drip and I'm a little off. Correct that really quick. Yeah. So it seems like this pump had some automatic transmission fluid in it by the color. It's a bit reddish, as you can see. There we go, starting to flow now. All right, so that's one hose loosened. Now the next one above it is going to be a 19 millimeter. Going to go ahead and crack that one loose. Okay, crack this one loose. Let me get that out of the way. So it seems like these banjo bolts are different sizes. And I mean like thread diameter, things like that, or bolt diameter itself. So I'm not too worried about mixing them up. I'm gonna go ahead and dump them in the bin right there. Next, we're gonna go ahead and remove these 2 lines from up above the car because that's gonna give us access to the pressure hose, which is the one that's hard to reach, which I'm assuming is why no one makes a video covering it. So next up for me, I'm actually gonna be removing this 10 millimeter bolt right here because I'm gonna be swapping out my entire reservoir. I'm not keeping this one. I have a new one to go in place. And this 10 millimeter bolt that goes in between these 2 power steering lines, I'm also going to be removing that bolt, and that will allow these 2 hoses to come out. This little plastic bracket that you see right there keeps both of those in place, and there's an O-ring that goes behind that. I'm going to be replacing that as well. Again, make sure you have your drain bucket underneath. There'll be a lot of fluid coming out here. I'm going to go ahead and pop this loose all the way, so all this fluid can drain out. So this bolt here is actually going to be a 13 mil. And it comes out like so. Should be able to pull this out. Yeah, just like that. And you see the O-rings are right here. It seems like this one didn't come out with the pipe, so pay attention to that. If you double O-ring, it's going to guarantee leak on you. So if it doesn't come out with your power steering line, make sure you get a pick like I had in the beginning of the video. An L-shaped pick might work, but make sure you go in there and get that O-ring out. Now in my case, I can't get this reservoir out without pulling these clamps out. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to loosen these clamps with a flathead. So what I am going to do in this case, it's being kind of hard to get off, I am going to undo these bolts and pull the whole bracket up. That way I can get better access to those hoses underneath. So I ended up grabbing a pair of pliers and then grabbing this and just twisting it around the reservoir. Careful not to squeeze too hard. You might break the reservoir if you are going to reuse it, but I am not anyways, so that wasn't a big deal for me. I'm going to be cleaning off this bracket shortly. And next up, let's see, these are here. So you just want to make sure you can pull these out of the way, because next up, we're going to try and get access to that pressure hose now that we have more room. back underneath the vehicle, there's going to be a little bracket by the motor mount that is an 8mm. You can see it right here. It's a bit covered in oil, so I'm sorry about that. I had a really bad valve cover leak, but it shouldn't be too tight. Just pull this one off. If I'm not mistaken, I think this one goes to the pressure hose. But don't quote me on that. This is an 8mm. I have it on a small 1/4-inch ratchet. Now we can wiggle this line a bit more. So now that we're back up top, I got this hose right here, and I was able to grab this sleeve on it and pull it back like so. And that allows me to clear whatever this is. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to clear that, and it's going to get stuck on that bracket right here. Let me go ahead and turn my brightness on, or my camera light on. So that pulling this sleeve back, I'm able to wiggle it through here and raise it up like so. And now you have direct access to all the power steering banjo bolts you're going to need. But what I would recommend you do is right below this hose, see if I can zoom out. Right below this hose, it's better for me to go from the bottom, but I actually went from the bottom here and I removed these two 14mm nuts on the bottom of the motor mounts. And I got a piece of wood on a jack and went on my oil pan, raised it up. I'll show you guys really quick. I just jacked it up to where the pad is sitting like right here on the oil pan. And you want to raise it up about 1 inch. And once you're lowering the motor mounts, I use a flathead like this, and I kind of just pried where it made sense to try and get the engine mounts to fall back in the slots down here. So I did it that way, but I believe there's also a 16mm nut above here that you can get with the pressure hose removed. Yep, so that one on the left side goes to the pressure hose. And then the one right here is the bottom hose that leads to the cooler in the front of the vehicle. So guys, as you can see, that hose on the right side, that 22mm banjo bolt, I managed to crack loose. But there you go, it's proof. So what I did was I have my, let me zoom out. I have my 1/2-inch ratchet. I have a 22mm 1/2-inch socket attached to a 1/2-inch to 3/8 adapter. A 3/8 universal attached to what I think is a 9-inch. I think a 9-inch extension, then a 6-inch extension, then a 3-inch extension, and then I have my 3/8 to 1/2-inch adapter to my 1/2-inch ratchet. I know it's kind of rigged up. I'm sure you can simplify this, but what you want to do is what I did first was I got everything minus the ratchet onto that bolt first. Like I said, pull this hose up, gives you more access. Otherwise, you're not able to reach it. I pulled this up, then I got that whole jerry-rig thing on that 22mm nut on the right, or that bolt on the right, and then I just snapped it loose. After that, I loosened it by hand. Just be very careful because you are going to be kind of rubbing against whatever this is right here. Be very careful not to break this. Take your time, be patient, and the rewards will come. So yeah, again, you cannot get them mixed up. This bigger one was the one we already got from the pump. This one here is just a little bit smaller diameter. So you can't really get them mixed up is what it seems like. Everything seems to be, yeah, even that's a different size. So it doesn't seem like you're going to be able to get these mixed up. I think you should be good, so don't worry about that. Next up, I'm going to try and get that other one loose. I think it might be a 19mm. I'm going to try and get that one loose. It's right against the exhaust manifold, so I will update you guys shortly. All right, guys, just want to show you that I did manage to crack that other bolt loose. I tried many different combinations. I probably tried for about, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. The one combination the one thing that worked for me was a 19mm wrench. Box the end of it, and I can slip it on there just like that. And once I cracked it loose, I was able to flip it just like this, and then get a better angle of it, and keep on going just like that. And now, I believe it's loose enough to where I can get my hand on it and loosen it the rest of the way by hand. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I'll get back in touch. There we have it. I was able to pull the last banjo bolt out, but now we're able to get this pressure hose out. All the power steering lines are out of the vehicle. Just gonna make sure all of the crush washers are off of the steering box here. I'm gonna be using a pick for that because it's just better for your fingernails. Don't bother doing that. Go ahead and get yourself a pick. See if I can find mine. Let me see. You should be able to just get it off just like that. And this one I don't think has it on there. Yeah, maybe it does actually. Never mind, it does have it on there. So be careful doing that. If you do gouge a big scratch right here, there is a chance that it may leak. So be very careful. Don't be too aggressive with it. It's gonna come out, just be patient. And then we still have our O-ring here on this side that I'm gonna pop out. Let's see, right there, really easy. I'm gonna double check the other ones we have underneath the car by the power steering pump here. There should be one right here, not there. And there is one more. Where was the hole at? I think it was right here. Yeah, I'm not feeling anything. So these two are already gone. Make sure you clean your surfaces around here. I'll be showing you guys how to do that as well. But clean your surfaces, guys. You don't want to put brand new stuff on dirty parts, all right? Obviously, I can't talk much because look at this. I know, we're gonna clean it up, so bear with me. So guys, now that all the 4 hoses are out, that's really easy, just reverse order of that. Thanks for watching, have a great day. No, I'm just kidding, guys. This is the lower hose that goes pretty much like so on the cooler of the vehicle. This is the lower portion, and the upper one's gonna go through here on that slot right there. And then this is the innermost bolt that goes in the steering box here. So. All right, so it's been about 2 hours in real time for me since you guys saw the last clip, at least. What I do want to say first off is I was wrong. I don't think you're able to do this job without actually loosening the motor mounts and raising, this corner of the engine to get some extra room in there. So next up, I'm going to connect the banjo bolts to the pressure hose on the power steering pump, and then, I don't know, let's do that first and I'll continue on. What I'm gonna do now is just get some brake cleaner with a rag, and I'm going to clean the mating surface of that steering box really quickly. So, got that first hose down here already. Keep in mind, this hose kinks to the right, and it goes towards the frame rail here. I think we're at a good point where it's on there almost all the way, as far as I can get it hand tight. From here, I am going to have to use that super long setup I had yesterday. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Yeah, I want to say that's on there good enough to where it's not going to leak. So next up, we're going to get that pressure hose in there. The next one we have here is the pressure hose. This one has 2 19mm banjo bolts that go on the ends. Make sure you have your clutch washers on there. This is going to go like so in the engine bay. We're going to tuck it right in there, right next to that other one. I'm going to try and use the same method of pulling the sleeve back to get it in between the valve covers. One thing I do want to emphasize that I forgot to mention is to make sure that you do your best do the best job you can to get this sleeve to go back on this hose all the way, because you are, inches away from your exhaust manifold, and you know how hot that gets. I'm going to assume that this little silver thing here is your heat shield, and if you don't do a decent job at getting your heat shield back on your hose, I have a feeling it's not going to be too long until you're doing this job again, at least for the pressure hose. So this is the one that sucks too, so you want to be your, don't want to be your choice. So there we go, that's definitely good enough. So now that I got that on there, I went ahead and came down over here, and it's just hand tight right now, but I got the other 19 millimeter on the steering pop, power steering pop. Clean it off with brake cleaner and a rag. Make sure there's a washer on both sides. Sorry for the bad camera angle. Make sure there's a washer on both sides, and then tighten it by hand initially. Only then am I gonna recommend that you tighten it with the ratchet. I'm just going by like feel and what I think is tight enough. I will also be, checking the car while it's running, see if anything's dripping, things like that. But as for now, I'm just gonna tighten them pretty snug, but not too tight. Now we just have one more hose that has a banjo bolt, and that is I believe it's the 24 millimeter or 22 millimeter that goes in the back right here. So I went ahead and tightened the last two banjo bolts here. This one is the pressure hose, if I'm not mistaken, and this one goes to the reservoir. Make sure you tighten this one first. It's 19 millimeter. I used a wrench for that. Don't make the same mistake I did and tighten this one first and then not have access to this one. That's a no-brainer, sorry. Now we're gonna go ahead and get the O-rings into this power steering line that goes into the cooler behind the radiator here. The curly line that goes to the cooler goes on the bottom here, and the straight one goes on top. What I do recommend is to lube these up with soap before you press them in. Just like so. Make sure it has a washer on it. I'm going to do that really quick. Okay, those are on with a 13 mil. Just make sure you get the hoses in first. Get the hoses in first, then this goes on top and clamps the hoses in place. Now next up, what I messed up on that I want to warn you guys is the routing for these lines here. So this big hose that goes here, make sure you route it under these two hardwired lines. And then the little one here goes over the lines and under this line. It took me like at least two or three attempts to get it right. From there, one upgrade that I would recommend is you get these spring-styled clamps here on these two hoses on both sides, the smaller and larger diameter hoses. The benefit of the spring style is that they are always clamping tighter and tighter. So, meanwhile, this one is like more of like a manual adjustment. I also made a mistake of telling you guys to tighten the bracket here first. You don't want to do that. That way you can just lift this whole thing up and have easier access to pressing these hoses in. I did use a bit of silicone spray here, as you can see. So before you have them on, just spray the inside of the hoses with this stuff. Use as much as you want. It dries and doesn't leave any residue or anything. So I did that, pressed them on. Only then did I bolt these two 10 mils down, and then I tightened this just tight enough to where I could no longer turn this. So as you can see, it's just barely getting through the thread. If you tighten it too much, you're probably going to crack the housing here. Other than that, we are only missing, I think, one more thing, and that's going to be the 8 millimeter bolt that goes underneath the vehicle here. Gonna pull this bracket down just a hair. It's gonna be kind of hard to do with one hand. I'm gonna go ahead and fill this reservoir. Previously, the bottle does say ATF. I went to the dealer, gave them my VIN, and they handed me some Titan CHF 11S. Forms say you're supposed to flush the fluid, maybe get a third bottle, because I got two right here. As you can see, Basically get a third bottle and, you know, flush it out. If you're gonna change the fluid type, I don't think it's too big of a deal. I think we'll be okay considering how much of the fluid came out. I'm gonna go ahead and fill this reservoir up as much as I can. I'm gonna have it go until it touches the dipstick here. And then I'm gonna stop, turn the car on. Don't turn the steering wheel yet. It's gonna make some noise. That's what it says online. It's gonna make some noise. It might go away. And then from there, just keep on topping off your power steering fluid. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and top this off. Okay, so I've poured maybe 1/3 of one bottle in here. As you can see, there's still plenty of fluid in there, but I'm gonna go ahead and turn the car on at this point. I'm also gonna be bleeding my coolant system at the same time because make sure we're neutral. Yeah, you can hear some noise going on. I'm gonna keep on pouring it out into that bleeder, the reservoir, sorry. I was seeing some smoking going on in this area, mainly because of how much oil and grease that were on my hands, especially exhaust, all that stuff. But I really just want to get a good look at the lines here. It's kind of tight, so it is hard to see, but I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to go from there. At this point, it seems like I've checked the lines. They're looking good. I don't see anything dripping or leaking, at least from the top side here by the steering box. I am going to recommend at this point now we start turning the wheel and get that pump working. Get it to bleed a little bit more, and you can feel it just lighten up significantly once you turn it a little bit. Yeah, it's a lot lighter. Awesome. So that pump is working. Everything is going through like it should. I'll take a look back at it, top it off if you need to. Seems like it's working pretty good. I only have one bottle in there so far. I think we might just have to go take it for a test drive and see. And see the level after that, see where the level is at. But I don't hear any funny noises, nothing like that. Surprisingly, actually. I do hear a bit all the way. When I turn it all the way, full lock, I do hear a bit of noise. Checking the dipstick. We are, I would say probably halfway through. I'm assuming it would top up here, this last line. At this point, I want to go ahead and take it for a test drive and see how we're looking.